Today I'm going to teach you how to make this 5x7 layered greeting card that is perfect for any occasion, but especially a birthday or Mother's Day. My name is Claudette with theycallmemartha.com, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here today and inspired by what I'm going to teach you, I would love for you to subscribe, and if you like my video, please do give me a thumbs up. Your feedback really does help me grow my channel on YouTube. All right, let's go ahead and get started making this card. I'm using the digital paper collection called Mariposa by Teresa Collins Studio. If you want to download that paper, I will have the link in my video description box below, or you can use any of your paper crafting supplies that you may already have on hand. So we're going to start with our card base, and I've cut a sheet of very good high quality, like thick cardstock, again for my card base, that is 7 inches by 10 inches. And then I just scored it down the middle at 5 inches. And you want to make sure that you use a scoreboard to do this so that you get a nice crisp fold that is straight. And then I'm just going to go ahead and burnish this fold down using my bone folder. And I do like to line up my edges before I press down with my bone folder. And it just helps me get a card that is very square on the edges, so no overlaps or anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the card base aside and let's start working on the various layers. So my first layer is 5 inches by 7 inches, and I'm going to adhere this to my card base without a border. So you want to start with something that can be your base here, and I've done a faux wood grain paper. And I'll go ahead and link my tutorial for how to make this in the video description below. It's really quick and easy, and the result is really a beautiful piece of paper that looks a lot like wood. So I put double-sided tape on the back of my base panel here, and what I'm going to do is pull up just the corners of the tape, and that's so that I can make sure that it is straight and flush around the edges to my card base, and then we can pull off the rest of the tape, and I'll show you how I do this little trick here. So I've pulled off the little piece in the middle, and then all of my edges are kind of sticking out the side. And what I like to do is line up my corners along the top and the left, and then move my way down, lining up the corners, lining up all the corners, and then I press down in the middle and it holds it. And then all you have to do is pull your backers for your tape, and your paper is not going to move and is perfectly square to your card base. Okay, so now we have that card base down. Our next set of layers are in our patterned paper. And I've chosen a very light blush pink that coordinates with my Mariposa paper. I've cut my base at 4 1/4 by 5 1/4, and my next layer at 4 by 5, so that when you stack them together, you have a very slight reveal all the way around. And then what I like to do is, when I have these stacked layers like this, is to use foam tape between my base and my next layer. And what I like to use is called Fun Foam, and it's available like in the kids section of your craft store. And I usually pick up the 2mm thick version. It's very inexpensive, and what it does is it allows you to raise up your panels without any gaps or bumps, like as if you were using very narrow foam tape or even foam squares, where there's a void between the foam. Sometimes your paper will want to collapse and gap on you. So I've mounted a piece of that Fun Foam to the back of my first panel just using that double-sided score tape. And you can see here it creates a very, very strong, solid piece that will become my base. So all I have to do is glue my panel here to that bottom, and I'm just using art glitter glue. You can use your score tape, or you can use like an ATG gun, whatever you really like to use. The only thing I caution you against is using a lot of thick glue, like wet glue, because it could potentially warp your paper. I like art glitter glue because it dries really fast, but it allows you just enough time to kind of move it around and make sure that all of your borders are equal. So I tend to use wet glue when I'm layering something like this. And then what we're gonna do now is take the border strip. So this strip is 1.5 inches wide, and it doesn't matter the length as long as it's at least as wide as your card, because I'm just gonna trim it down. So this is gonna become kind of the accent between my base paper and my second layer. And I just kind of wanna eyeball it. I think I've got it maybe 2 inches from the bottom. And it really just adds some visual interest, nothing more. And if you have a T-ruler or even a grid surface, it will help you line this up in the back, but I don't have that today, so I'm just gonna use some score tape here and my eyes and just kind of eyeball it. And I know, like I said, I don't need to go all the way across with this paper. It's larger than I need, but that's okay. I can just trim it off. And so I'll do the same thing as I did when I was applying my base, is I'm just gonna pick up just the corners of these tape backers, just so that I can make sure that it's lined up, and then I'll go ahead and pull it. Okay, so again, I'm about 1.5 inches or 2 inches from this bottom edge, and I'm just going to make sure that it's straight, and then pull my little tapes. This one got stuck back there. So I'm making sure that it's straight, and then pulling those tapes out. And then I can come back in with my scissors and trim off that excess. And then now I'm ready to apply my layer on top of that. So I'm just going to pull off this tape on the back. And then where you adhere this is really up to you. You can have it completely centered. You can have it a little bit more toward the bottom. It's really about balance on the card, because keeping in mind that if I pull my sample back over here, we're gonna have a lot of weight down here. So I wanted to make sure that it was pretty much equal between both sides, or the top and the bottom. But I'm just going to visually line this up. It doesn't have to be too perfect. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is pull over some embellishments that I cut out, and I'm using, this is the, I believe it's called the Gratitude Leaf, which is a cut file on the Teresa Collins website. I'll link that up as well. But you can use any die cuts that you may have at home. Basically, I was looking for something that just created some foliage here to kind of have some interest. And then I cut out several of these. I was using the Sizzix Tim Holtz die. Gosh, it's a wreath, but they don't call it that. They call it 664434. And I just picked this up on Amazon. It was very inexpensive, and it allowed me to cut out these really cool wreaths. And it comes with another wreath as well that's slightly different. But I just cut out several, and I'm just going to layer them, and it just creates some visual interest here and some dimension. And another alternative, if you don't have a Thinlits die, or you have if you have a digital cutter like a Cricut or a Scan and Cut, is I took this leaf, or I guess it's a wreath. I downloaded it from the Teresa Collins website in the cut file section, as well as these leaves. And I just scaled it to the size I wanted, cut it out, and then I can use that the same way. So it's really about using what you have or what you have access to. It doesn't have to be a specific die. But I'm just going to go ahead and layer a few of these down. And then because it's so fine, I'm going to use some art glitter glue and just put a little bit of glue here and there, and it's just about making sure that it's secure more than anything. You don't need, you know, a whole lot of coverage here. And then I'm just going to lay it down, my first layer here, and I'm kind of focusing on this lower right hand corner. And then I'm going to start kind of stacking them up. And so the next one I'm going to use, I cut out of like a craft color cardstock, which I thought kind of complemented that wood grain paper and really felt kind of botanical or spring-like. And I'm going to layer this guy in next. And then I think two should be enough. This was the third one I had. I don't really think I need it. And then what's really cool about when you cut this wreath, this is the centerpiece that punches out from it. And I wanted to use this to put my, you can see where it kind of lines up just right like that, where I wanted to put my sentiment, right? And so I saved this piece, which I guess you would normally throw away if you were looking for a wreath. And here you can see I just stamped it using the, I think this is one of the Teresa Collins stamps as well. But like I said, you can use it for Mother's Day or say thank you, whatever you want. And then this becomes our sentiment area. And so I'm going to pop this up on a little piece of sheet foam. And I'm just picking up some of my scraps from some of my previous projects that, again, I use that sheet foam a lot because it tends to give me a very solid area to glue down. And so I'll just, let me get a little bit of score tape here and pop this on. And every time I use the foam, I save all these little pieces that I'm cutting off, because you never know when you're going to have a little something like this where you just need a tiny little piece and you don't need to cut something out of your big piece of sheet foam. Okay, so I'm just going to, let's go ahead and do this one since it's already stamped. And I'm just going to glue that to the back and then apply a little bit more score tape here. And then when I put it down in my wreath, I just want to line up the original position of where it was when I cut it out. So that little leaf right there, you can see where it kind of lines up. And just making sure it's straight. And I'm just going to pop that in just like that. And then you can come in with some of these leaves. And if you want to add a little bit more dimension, you know, you can kind of fold them a little bit. Like I crease the leaves a little bit with my fingernail. You can ink these edges if you want, if you like that extra dimension that gives. But just taking just a couple of seconds, you can see can transform that leaf into something that's very one-dimensional looking to something that has a little bit more character. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down. And I don't need much. It's just enough to adhere it kind of at the base. And so I'm just going to work my way around the wreath here and add my, I used 3 today. You can add more or less, whatever you like. You can add some flowers, like if you have some pre-made paper flowers or even faux flowers, you could add those in. And this time I'm going to have this one kind of come along the bottom like that. And then my last one, I'm going to have kind of curling up along the left edge of that sentiment. And then one thing I do when my card is all done is I come back in with stickles. I know stickles have been around for a long time, but I use them a lot. I really still like them a lot. And they tend to give a little bit of sparkle, but they don't like warp your paper with too much liquid. And so you can see here, if I go back to my example, I just kissed the edges of these leaves with the stickles, a little bit around the wreath, and then even some of these little butterflies in here, I just touched just a little bit with the stickles, and it gave it a little bit more character. Okay, so the leaves are down, and I want to show you how I did my little bow here. And I just had some, this is hemp cord, and I got it at Hobby Lobby even on clearance. It was a really good price. And I'm gonna just loop it around my hands 3 or 4 times, just enough to make a little bit of a bow. And then I take a little extra piece of it. Let's see, I've got 3 loops and 3, okay. So I'm just gonna take a little piece of it here off the end and tie a little knot with it right in the middle. And it just gives me a very kind of sloppy bow, but I like it. To me, it looks rustic, I guess. And I'm just tying that little piece of twine to create a center. Just like that. Just a nice little knot. If you want, you could put a little bit of glue there behind it. And then you can either use, I would recommend either hot glue or something like this, these little pop dots or thin dots, whatever they are called these days. I don't know, I've had them in my stash for a long time. And I'm gonna put one of those in the back. And then I also had a little, like a little bow that I put on top of it, made with just a small piece of tulle that you can add if you want on the top, right in the middle. Or you can just leave it just as is like this, or you can add a different kind of ribbon that you might have on hand. And here I'm just kind of fiddling with it just to make sure that my loops are kind of even, a little bit more even, I guess. That one side's a little bit long. And then I'm going to put that little glue dot that I put on there and pop it right in the middle of where those leaves kind of joined. And then I have a little butterfly that I cut out of one of the pieces of paper. And I'm going to adhere that. Let's use another one of these little glue dot things again. And I'm just going to pop it right in the middle. And then I like to, when I do butterflies, I like to fold up the wings a little bit just to give it a little bit of dimension. And I'm just going to pop that here on the side, maybe like that. Okay. And again, I just kind of pop those wings up a little bit. All right. And then if you want to come back in with the stickles, I would wait until you're 100% finished with your card so that you can let it sit and dry. But you can also come in with, in my example, I used some pearls. Let me just pull them here. I used some pearls here that I don't even know where I got these. I've had them in my stash for a long time, but they're just flat back pearls. And I'm going to just pop 3 of them right here on this little front sentiment panel. And just like that. I'm going to use my little pickup stick because inevitably I'm going to end up losing one of them. And while that glue is wet, you can kind of move them around a little bit. And just like that. I always like to do things in 3s. I guess visually it's a little bit more interesting to me, but you can also pop a few of those little pearls out here, or even on the wood grain paper if you like that, if you want to add a few more. And like I said, we could do some stickles at the end. We can put in a little tulle bow on top of here if you want, like I did on my original example. Now, so the front of the card is pretty much finished, short of the embellishments that you might want to add. And let me just show you what I did on the inside. So I cut a piece of, let's see. So I printed this, this same paper. I printed it in a larger scale, and I printed it on vellum. And then I'm going to use this as kind of my insert on my card. I'm looking for a piece here that's about 5.5 by 5.5 wide by 6 3/4 tall. And I'm going to score it at about 3/4 of an inch. And when you're scoring vellum, just be really careful because you can really easily punch right through it and tear it. And keep in mind, this step is optional. You don't have to add this inside your card. You can just leave the inside blank for your writing panel. But I love this paper so much that I was trying to find different ways of incorporating it. And so here's that little score line here. And then I'm going to add some score tape. And I would not use wet glue at all on vellum. It will curl it and it'll be ruined. I've tried it a few times. I've tried a really light hand with wet glue and it doesn't matter. It just, vellum just does not seem to take real well to it at all. Okay, so I've applied the glue to the little hinge here, and then I'm going to apply it to the inside of my card, and I'm lining up this scored and folded edge with the inside edge of my card, and I'm just going to make sure that it's lined up, and then I'll pull my tape. So you want to have just a little bit of a gap to the right of this score line so that your card can easily fold. So I'm just lining it up here visually to make sure that I have enough on the center area, but then I also have it an equal border all the way around. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this tape. Just like that. And then inside, I'm going to pull that tape. And so, as I said earlier, when you use vellum, you can always see adhesive through it, which I don't like. So I just cut a little strip of paper. It's the same paper I used in the front here. And this one is about 1 inch wide. And then I made sure it was the same height as this paper, which is 6 3/4. And I'm just going to glue it right on top of that section that had the glue. And it adds a little bit of decoration, but it's also very functional in that it hides that glue, which is my ultimate goal here. And again, this step is totally optional. You don't have to decorate the inside of your card. You can just leave the center area for writing a nice sentiment. You also don't have to use vellum. You could use just a regular sheet of scrapbook paper that coordinates with your card that you really like. And add that, right, to add a little bit of decoration on the inside of your card as well. So I'm just adding that score tape to the back, and I'm just going to line it up here and make sure that it's straight. And then I'm holding on to it, and I pull those tapes, and then it's perfectly straight. And there's the inside of my card. You can come back if you want with your bone folder and just burnish that down. And, you know, if you want, you could stamp something on the inside. You could cut out another one of these butterflies and put it in here. You know, really the options are endless here in how you want to do the inside of your card. So now I'm just going to come in, now that the inside of my card is completely finished, I can come back in with my stickles. And like I said, I'm just going to kiss these leaves just a little bit and a little bit on the wreath. And another thing about stickles too, it dries really quick. And the one I'm using today is, let's see, Stardust. Which, I don't know why, but I have 3 bottles of Stardust. I must really like it. But it's the one I reach for more than any other color in my stash. I think it's probably because it goes with everything. And it really just picks up whatever color is underneath. Okay, so I've added that glue. I'm gonna hit the side of the wreath here a little bit. And like I said, if you wanted to, you could come back in and just put a little bit of that glitter on top of, in my case, I have these butterflies that are so pretty that I want to put in. and make them sparkle a little bit. My butterfly here, I could add some to that as well. That is your card. It comes together, you know, quick and easy if you just layer in your embellishments and kind of don't focus too much on making it perfect. This type of card is great just to, you know, have kind of, you know, just a little bit more freeform, and it is kind of more rustic looking that way, I think. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Again, if you like it, please do give me a thumbs up. And if you are inspired by what I've taught you today, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Have a great day.